Greetings, my paranormal patrons. This is the Monstrous Feminine Podcast Patreon, a space where horrible humans talk a little more about horror. My name is Zeba, and I'm joined by my Coven,
Mila,
Louisa,
and Taya.
And this is our bonus episode for our horror westerns, the first bonus episode of season 3. Thank you so much to our May Queen pledges on Patreon for supporting us.
This episode we are going to be talking about the 2008 western The Burrowers, directed by J.T. Petty. This film begins with a white family in a community of pioneers disappearing after a gruesome attack by an unknown force. The attack and disappearances are blamed on Indigenous Americans, and a cavalry is soon assembled to hunt down the tribe responsible and rescue the family. In particular, the betrothed of an Irish immigrant named Coffee. Soon the rescue mission turns into a suicide mission, as the men gradually discover this was not the work of any tribe, but an ancient monstrous species known as the Burrowers, who poison and bury their victims, rendering them alive but immobile, and then return days later to feed once their bodies are partially rotted. Delicious.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit.
This movie feels like extra disappointing after I recently just saw Prey.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Taya.
What's Prey?
I told y'all about it in the group chat. It's the Predator prequel.
What's the Predator?
The Predator is in Predator versus Alien. So Alien, there's the Alien franchise, and then there's the Predator franchise, and then they exist in the same world and cross over in Alien versus Predator.
Oh yeah, I don't think I like that one though.
I actually really like that, I'm not gonna lie. I like every Predator film and every Alien film except for every one since Michael Fassbender ended. Those are all been terrible. But before that, I really like them. I feel like Alien versus Predator is excellent trash. It's trash that I don't mind consuming. It's not good, but it's so bad that it's good.
Prey, which is the prequel to Predator. All you know about Predator is an alien. There's a species of aliens that are like hunters, and they go about the whole universe hunting things. And Prey is the first time, or implied the first time, that they come to Earth, and it's still pre-colonial America, or America that's in the process of being colonized. There's an indigenous tribe where they are encountering this alien species for the first time, and it's a prequel only in that we know that the Predator returns to Earth eventually in more modern times, but even the Predators have less advanced technology. They're known for their hunting technology, but because this was hundreds of years ago, they still have advanced technology on us, but it's primitive for their time. There's many different races sort of fighting over the land, and then there's the Predator who's new and they've never encountered aliens before, but they are used to colonizers. So it is super similar to this in that it's set during the same time period, but almost entirely Indigenous cast.
Okay, shall we talk about the Burrowers? At what point would you have given up? Because this man was dedicated to Marianne. I was like, whoa, I would have thrown in the towel, I feel way earlier. They thought it was going to be a rescue mission or something like that.
So there was very much a fear from white settlers about race mixing. White people did integrate fully into, Zeba, you talked about it extensively when we did Blood Quantum. I don't know, I think that's just a base fear during those times. So maybe they just need to get them back. I don't know, they'd probably rather they were dead, to be honest.
There was a lot of you're right, a fear of rape in this. Parcher says any Christian woman would prefer to die than be captured. If it came to that, I hope you'd be strong enough to take care of your mother. Basically saying if you get assaulted, then that's worse than death.
Good point to start out on, keeping it light.
Yeah, diving right in there. Jeez.
Funny that the fear of rape is so present when they're being in their bodies are being invaded, and it's not exactly penetrative, I would say, but it is invasive.
It was a horrific mode of death.
It was super gross. Very subtle body horror. The little twitching of the toe really got me.
It was a bit more gory body horror than the others that we have talked about for this month. And it did something about the immobility was really just not something. The immobility element was just terrifying.
Or being buried alive is really scary.
Yeah, it was a little bit off. It was a lot of body horror. The idea of they wait for your body parts to get soft and squishy and partially rotted before they come back and devour you. That was gross.
One of my worst fears is
being immobilized by a weird mole thing.
And then been eaten alive.
Like the concept of this movie was like, I don't know, like the reveal was just like not scary enough. I was just already like,
Yeah, I liked that we couldn't see the monster for most of it. That was way scarier before we could see them.
A Jaws effect. It's always better when you can't see the monster.
especially in this one, because I feel like they don't know a lot about the Burrowers. I cannot say the Burrowers correctly.
It's your southern accent.
Burrowers.
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 They don't know enough about the monster for me to like feel like we needed to see it. They were still pretty in the dark about it.
Pun intended.
It would have almost just felt like more thought was put into it if we just never saw them at all. Because you'd be like, okay, we're like as in the dark as they are about everything. I don't really like love that they did do the initial like settlers versus Indians.
They literally said a Negro, an Irishman, and an Indian walk into a bar.
And like the one other thing that makes this kind of problematic is they're like, yeah, and it was all fine and dandy because they were subsisting off of the buffalo until the white people killed the buffalo. Anyway, but now they're eating people. And I was like, that's a big thing to skip over. Like, it's like a lot of negating blame.
I also thought, like, I mean, it's kind of, this is jumping right to the end, but yeah, there is a lot of conflict between cowboys, pioneers, colonizers, and indigenous tribes. But, like, the message behind the ending was supposed to be, like, the cavalry kill the last two indigenous Americans, meaning that they'll never know the ingredients in the toxin that they had created that would help them battle the Burrowers, right? And there's emphasis on the cruelty of the white colonizers and the resulting indigenous genocide in the film. But the ending is more condemning that on the basis that the violence eradicated knowledge more so than like just, you know, the simple inhumanity and cruelty of genocide in and of itself. I think they were trying to like be like, it was trying to be like a woke kind of more interpretation of a Western, but then I was like, oh, but you forgot about that. Like, yes, we eradicated like knowledge, of course, but like that's become like the main message of it.
Rather than like actual human decency.
It's still exploitative to have to like sit there and watch indigenous people be tortured. Like, yes, I know that was the reality, but it falls into that thing of like, what do we have to show and not have to show?
Even if you're using it as a setup to like make a point in the end, it's not negated any of that violent imagery you've used.
Totally unnecessary. I'm more fine if they say racist things about people than showing torture. Like what you were saying, Mila, about like what's exploitative for the spectacle in this instance, where it's like, we have monsters. The people don't have to be the monsters in this one. Like, we understand them to be monsters. They can say monstrous things without demonstrating them, and it could still be a horror movie because the monster will kill the person.
We just talked about in Jordan Peele how like he refrains from giving you the spectacle, the horror, and it's like tasteful. And it's like, this is literally like, you could have, like, if you wanted to have the scene where this like cavalry leader is being an absolute evil person and torturing someone, you could have just like heard the guy scream, which still would have been terrible, don't get me wrong, but we absolutely didn't need to keep freaking seeing it. It was just like, not to mention at the end we also see them like lynched, like they're hanging bodies. It was like a lot. This was a lot, and it was not necessary, and it was all to like be like, yeah, the cavalry were bad, see, if they had just not killed them then they would know the toxin. And it's like, but also they could have just like not killed them to not be, you know, absolutely evil humans. You know, like, yeah, cool, white people come, there's an environmental message of like messing with the food chain and whatever you did, but like that's not why I personally was not vibing with their actions. I was not vibing with the cavalry's actions because it was inhumane genocide, not because it fucked the buffaloes up and whatnot. You know what I mean?
Indigenous knowledge is important. Like, yeah, if you kill indigenous people, indigenous knowledge gets lost and we're all fucked. That can be true without making, like, I don't know if there's like the magical Negro equivalent for Native Americans. I'm sure there is.
Yeah, also, but like, I'd rather hear that perspective of like what it was like to have a culture eradicated and knowledge from like an indigenous filmmaker, not this.
They need to stop like retelling this story in the same way, or just trying to like flip the script the last second as if that's going to like wave a magic wand over the rest of the film, because it's like now over 100 years of the same imagery and the same narratives have been like shoved down people's throats, and you can't really, like we said about satire with the female gaze in air quotes, trying to satirize the male gaze and like objectification on screen. You can't like present it and then be like, hey, look, we're doing this and that's bad. Like you can't always separate like the film language from the message you're trying to get across. Like sometimes there are two different dialogues happening at the same time. These sort of films, even when they try to challenge something like that, they still look the same. If you turned off the sound, like you're still just looking up a bunch of Native Americans on screen. I don't really remember the end of this film.
Essentially, they blame the trapper, I don't know what they call them, like the white people who didn't witness the monsters still believe that the Native American people are doing it. And that's their justification for going out and killing them and finding more of them to kill. But I also don't necessarily believe that they thought that that woman had been kidnapped at all. Like, I think that they were looking for any justification to kill them and would have just gone with it.
I feel like this movie, like to me, I kept searching for like a deeper meaning in it because I wanted it all to mean something. And I feel like they were putting like straws together kind of for it to have like this overarching message of what colonization did to like the indigenous communities in America and destroying like knowledge of the landscape and all that. But like it just kind of falls short because it wasn't like that they come to a conclusion like Louise was saying that like these people are their equals, they're fighting the same monsters. It's just like they're more so like sad that they lost the knowledge more than like they lost people who were actually going through the same thing as them, and that's why it falls short. But also in a way like it kind of is the same like documentation thing that we were just talking about, like how failure to have documentation, especially when you're a person of color in this country, pretty much always puts you at a disadvantage because people always will assume the worst. So without them being able to be like, this is the monster's head or something, they automatically were like, no, fuck a monster, like you did this. I was like, are they trying to like use the Burrowers as like a metaphor for like disease? But that doesn't work because like the white people brought disease and yet it did kill out like large amounts of the indigenous community in America. But like it wasn't like they were actively finding ways to try to eradicate it, or that like the knowledge of how to defeat these diseases died with indigenous communities. Like it just all falls short.
Yeah, they never assumed it was an illness either, which I think is really strange because they had bodies with pulses that just weren't, I mean, they looked dead, I suppose, but no one considered that they had gone out into the prairie, gotten some weird bug, and fallen ill.
The thing that I feel like is weird about it is like I almost would have preferred if they like took this an approach of like they thought it was like they were under like some sort of curse or something like that. It didn't seem like in the sphere of something that was just naturally occurring or that like another human was doing. So it was like what? I need the person who like wrote this movie to like explain to me what they were going for, because like every deeper meaning I'm trying to go for in my mind, I'm like, it just doesn't work.
I think it's very simple. It's just they're being like, oh, maybe colonization was bad.
Maybe.
I don't think they're doing a great enough job at like saying that either though.
No, they didn't do a great job.
This is what happens when somebody who's not from a culture that's been colonized or experienced genocide tries to like make art about that, because it's like I see what you're trying to do. I see that there was an attempt here to like be like, yeah, see, white people did that wrong, but it's like the execution not so great. I also just remembered that they still made like the Native American people monstrous in the sense that like that tribe at the end were like they used human bait, right, in order to like drug the burrowers. So like there's still an element of like, you know, Native Americans are cruel, you know, in this narrative, even as they're trying to undo it, if that makes sense.
It's really weird because I'm looking at the reviews for this and people actually really liked it, and I'm so confused. I'm like, did we watch the same movie?
If you don't think too hard about it.
This is people enjoying the spectacle, because it does give you that. Like if you're looking at the typical horror score points, like there is gore, there's violence.
It just feels like an unfinished idea. Like it could have been really strong with like more thought into like what it was trying to say.
The trailer promises something completely different. Like the trailer promises to say nothing, and then the film half attempts that. So like the trailer, there's all white people in it. You just think it's the Western Front, and like there's like some women involved. Maybe they show some Native American folks, but they don't have any speaking parts. It implies a different intent behind the movie than what is executed, and I feel like the reason it falls flat, Taya, like you're saying, is like they only half thought through the metaphor, or if there's a metaphor at all. It's like, why is the creature kill people in this particular way? Like, yes, it is a very scary body horror, visceral kind of icky way to die, but there could have been more thought behind like why, or any thought behind why it invades in that way, or like why they're twitching, or like why, I don't know, being buried alive is the icky factor. Because I'm thinking about like, I mean, not every kill has to have a reason behind it, but there's like a very particular kind of creature, the way that it's not just like a slasher or like a creature feature or like a something or other.
The creature's very thought out.
Yeah, the creature's quite inventive.
This is in 2008, which is like right when Barack Obama was elected, and we had like all the people who started being like true birthers and saying he wasn't American and all that shit. And people started to like really heavily identify with like nationalist movements that said like who is American and who doesn't get to be American. So I think this is kind of commenting on that. When it came out during that time period, I can see how it may have been stronger. I feel like we've come to a point where people have gotten past like the basic acknowledgement of like what white people did was fucked up to Native American people and Black people. In 2008, it was probably like looked at as so noble to make a movie that indicates that white people did something wrong.
This film's like, yeah, white people are bad. And you were like, yeah, we know that next.
This is before the Make America Great Again movement, where people saw like just how bad people can get. In people of color's mind, like we knew how bad shit could get because we've seen it. Many of us have, and we've lived it. But I feel like the rest of the country was definitely in like the spot of like thinking like 2008 was a turning point where we can acknowledge like parts of American history that were fucked up, but still like not really, and also be like, oh my God, we have a Black president, so everything's over.
But also so weird how they threw in all these like motley characters as if like they were oppressed to the same degree and for the same reason. Like they had the Black guy, they had this Irish guy, they had the Native American guy. It felt so random and like such a false comparison that even that the white people would be treating them in the same way of like, oh yeah, fuck those guys because they're different. It's like different how, and how are you going to treat them different? Like I just couldn't get along with this, like these buddy cops, you know?
It just is ignoring like the climate of the time and like how much literature was written that was on race theory back in that day. I guess it's not the most shocking thing in the world. This is the way that it is, but it's just like so unrealistic.
Yeah, I thought the Black character, like, it just felt very ahistorical though. Not the fact that he was there, just the whole treatment. It was weird. I think it was said that he was freed cook, you know? Freed Black man. Again, felt like, okay, we want to have a diverse cast, so we want like to have a Black man in here. How are we gonna like write that in? Let's give it this. And the leader of the cavalry, like the white army guy, was like more rude, like ruder to the Black cook. Like when something went down, he was like, "Oh, it was a cook who released the native guy, or who gave him meat or gave him dinner." That's what happened. But really, like, I just feel like his whole presence there was not treated historically accurately. If you have this guy who's like so vehemently racist against like Native Americans, why would he be like somewhat chill with his cook? Basically, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of felt all very, very weird. The use of like race and his presence there. I kind of would have rather just had him not be there at all.
Can we talk about the no subtitles thing? That things were not translated, that they just let us be confused sometimes. Yeah, it's quite common now, but I wondered why. I thought it worked really well in this. I thought it was a good choice as far as like that is the only justification for these races mixing, is to like see that dynamic, and that like people who need a translator, or people the privilege of having a translator, or why they would be allied with some Indigenous folks because they need to communicate. It kind of showed like the interdependence everybody has on each other when like it's just you versus the elements, like the necessity of language, especially with so many languages are being spoken. Like I think that is something that is left out of traditional Westerns, is everybody is speaking English, or it's like English and an Indigenous language, or perhaps English and Spanish occasionally, but like the inclusion of like French or like other types of colonizers. Like I don't think they had Dutch or anything like that, but there would have been so many languages spoken at that time that like the simple fact of communication would have been a barrier to sharing knowledge about like you can eat these plants, or this thing could be used for medicine, or why you would need to have a cook who has the knowledge of like what you can and can't eat, or somebody who knows the directions. Like all of that, I think is something I think about of the reality of the West, of Western expansion, that I don't think is shown in media very often. Like they'll have one or two or maybe three languages, and if they do, everybody speaks them inexplicably, or we have subtitles. So I think that it gave me something to chew on a bit.
Early Westerns, when directors would cast Native Americans, they weren't concerned with like what tribe they were from, what language they were speaking, their customs. And so a lot of Native American actors would essentially say whatever they wanted. It would be subtitled as the script says, but they would be saying like a joke or something like rude.
What did you think of the Indigenous translator character then, besides like his place as a translator? Like, because there was a lot, they were trying to like, there's a lot of commentary on like, oh, you know, race traitor. I don't know.
He was giving race traitor a little bit. Like, I could not understand why he was traveling with these people.
I wasn't trying to imply that he was not. He was. But I was a bit like, I was like, why is he there?
I assumed they had to be paying him handsomely. And I think that's a pretty common character in other Westerns too, is like the one Indigenous person who like, not even who is like the race traitor as explicitly as in this film, but just like, he's like the ally, which is interesting. Like he's the ally to the white people because he's like so empathetic. It's usually a man who's like, or sometimes it'll be like a Sacagawea character. It'll be a woman who's like, oh, we should befriend the new people, like, and for no reason, right? So I think that's pretty common, and also common that it's like pointless and unmotivated. Like you can't figure it out.
There was a bit of, you know, mon femme action. What's being said about a corpse being abject. Barbara Creed quotes Christopher and talks about like the corpse being like a subject and object. And this film is particularly playing with that because they are a corpse, like they are rotting, but they're still alive. And it's like very much tampering with that kind of boundary, which is what makes it quite eerie. And then Barbara Creed also says within a biblical context, the corpse is utterly abject. It signifies one of the most basic forms of pollution, the body without a soul. I think this film does make great use of the objection of a corpse. This necrophilia in this movie, which was super random. The young boy who is like, first of all, there was a lot of pressure on like him becoming a man, but I just thought it was so bonkers that they decided to tamper with the kissing her or something like when she's immobile. It was so weird.
You're right. Like the becoming a man point was so bizarrely handled by both of the parents. Like the mom's like, oh, don't curse around him before they leave. They're like, stop with all that cursing. But the boy needs to witness death before he can come back.
It's like how America lets you go to war but doesn't let you like have a beer.
Or this like puritanical, like the Americans have a very particular puritanical stint to everything that they do, but it's also super violent. Like violence is not a part of that purity culture. When you think about the Wild West, like yes, it's like brothels, it's sex workers, it's like violence on every corner, it's lawlessness, but at the same time, it's still wrapped up in that early American purity where it's like our women can't get raped, but women are literally just there to be like fuck bags who produce for you. Like, what is the thought behind that?
But I wonder how much of their absolute repulsion towards rape was more being raped by Native Americans.
Yeah. You were right to highlight that in the beginning. It was not so much about the violence against women. It was about the possible mixing.
Thank you for listening to The Monstrous Feminine. Be sure to follow us on Instagram, SoundCloud, and Spotify at The Monstrous Feminine Podcast, and on Twitter at The MonFemPod. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and follow us on TikTok at The Monstrous Feminine Pod for podcast clips and more fun. Brooms up, witches out.